A perfect light shimmers across endless golden clouds before something cracks. Not just beauty, but the most perfect being ever created. His name was Lucifer, and he walked among angels like a king. What if the brightest star in heaven could fall into complete darkness? Every angel loved him, but pride was growing in his heart. Could the most beautiful creation become the source of all evil? This is the complete story of how heaven's greatest angel became Satan. Long before humans walked the earth, heaven was a perfect kingdom. Every angel sang with joy and served God with pure hearts. The light from their wings painted rainbows across the golden halls. No sadness, no anger, no jealousy existed in this holy place. Angels moved like flowing water through gardens made of living light. Some angels burned like flames, singing holy songs without ever stopping. Others protected divine secrets with wings that sparkled like diamonds. The archangels carried God's most important messages on mighty guardian angels stayed close to watch over every precious soul. In this perfect order, God decided to create something truly special. From his infinite wisdom and love, he formed one extraordinary angel. Lucifer became the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and beauty. No other angel could match his intelligence or his shining glory. He was God's masterpiece, the very first being sculpted by divine hand. The Creator gave him power that no other angel would ever possess. Lucifer led the heavenly choirs with a voice like golden thunder. When he spoke, even the mightiest warriors stopped to listen carefully. His presence filled every corner of heaven with brilliant morning light. The other angels followed him with complete trust and deep respect. Michael, the warrior, admired Lucifer's wisdom more than anyone else. Gabriel sought his counsel when difficult questions arose in heaven. Every song of praise reached God through Lucifer's perfect leadership. He organized the angels like a conductor leading a vast orchestra. His beauty wasn't just external, but radiated from deep within his being. God looked at Lucifer with the special love a father has. This was the brightest star, the morning light that rose first. But even in paradise, a tiny seed of darkness can take root. What do you think started growing inside Lucifer's perfect heart? Pride began as a whisper, barely noticeable at first. Lucifer started wondering why his light shouldn't shine even brighter. These thoughts grew stronger each time he performed his heavenly duties. What if my glory didn't always need to serve another being? The question echoed in his mind like a stone dropped in still water. Other angels began noticing small changes in their beloved leader. His light seemed restless, flickering with a strange new energy. Gabriel approached him one day with genuine concern in his voice. "Brother, what burden weighs on your heart and dims your glow?" Lucifer turned away, hiding the storm that was building inside him. There are things even we cannot understand, dear Gabriel. A cold feeling spread through Gabriel's heart at these mysterious words. Day by day, Lucifer began neglecting his most important duties. The heavenly choir missed his golden voice leading their songs. He attended praise gatherings, but his mind wandered to other thoughts. His gaze turned upward with a mixture of pride and growing resentment. Heaven had clear rules, but God gave every angel free will to choose. The gift of choice was precious, but it could also be dangerous. Some angels, dazzled by Lucifer's greatness, began listening differently. They heard something new in his voice, a promise of something more. A cherub noticed the change and asked him a simple question. Do you no longer find joy in singing praises to our Father? Lucifer's smile turned cold as winter frost on a window. I found other pursuits beyond what we've always known. That night, his radiance changed from praise to burning ambition. The perfect peace of paradise felt its very first tremor of rebellion. I will ascend above the clouds and make myself like the Most High. These words burned in his heart like an uncontrollable wildfire. Every angel felt something shift in the very fabric of heaven. The morning star was transforming into something entirely different. His name meant light bringer, and he had been heaven's brightest beacon. Now that same light was turning into a consuming flame of pride. Angels weren't weak or innocent, but wise and strong beings. Yet Lucifer drew them in with unshakable authority and magnetic charm. He didn't use lies, but spoke with such passion that many followed. They saw in him a new kind of light, brilliant and independent. His goodness, his authority, his influence were all real and deserved. If we truly understood his perfection, we'd grasp why God praised him. Even in his growing pride, he remained incredibly powerful and beautiful. How do you think God felt watching his masterpiece begin to fall? The Creator called Lucifer alone into a place of sacred silence. His voice, deep as ocean waves, spoke with infinite patience and love. My son, I sense your thoughts straying far from me. Ideas are growing in your heart that separate you from eternal truth. Lucifer looked at God with a glow that seemed perfectly serene. Father, didn't you create me to understand and explore all things? Is there something wrong with wanting to comprehend your work? God's sadness was profound, though he kept it carefully contained. He understood how freedom could let pride grow even in pure hearts. Your desire to understand is noble, but you're becoming self-centered. The light I placed in you has begun to seduce your heart. You're forgetting that your light reflects my love, not your own power. Lucifer lowered his gaze, but inside, a fire of pride burned hotter. How could I turn from you when you made me by your will? God looked at him with eyes holding infinite tenderness and sorrow. He knew Lucifer was seeing his own glory as the most important thing. The angel hadn't sinned yet, but his love for God was cooling. Remember where all light comes from, my beloved son. Don't let shadows creep into your heart and darken your purpose. If you turn back to me, your splendor will grow in truth. Together we will be greater than any thought you have alone. But Lucifer felt these words like a sting to his growing pride. Didn't God trust him to remain faithful without so many warnings? He withdrew with a respectful bow, but distance was growing inside. Days passed, and his desire to be independent consumed more attention. He no longer paused to contemplate God with the same devotion. The angels still worshipped him, his voice still led the choirs, but his heart was divided between serving and wanting to rule. Once again, God called him with even deeper concern. I see the path you're taking, and it brings me great pain. Your light is turning to shadow, but there's still time to return. If you come back, the love within you will bloom completely new. This time, Lucifer's heart was too hard to receive the warning. His mind sought only self-satisfaction and his own personal glory. Don't I deserve more than what I have been given? God's patience was infinite, but he had to respect Lucifer's choice. Even in your fall, I will always love you, my son. The Creator's sorrow was ancient and deep as the universe itself. All of heaven seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what came next. God knew a great revelation would soon test every celestial being. He wanted to give Lucifer time to grow in humility first. My son, a great test approaches like a mighty storm. The tensions in your heart will be intense when it arrives. You must prepare yourself and root yourself firmly in obedience. Lucifer knelt before God, gazing up with what seemed like devotion. Father, whatever the test may be, I desire to obey you. I cannot promise perfect faithfulness, but I want to be loyal. My heart still burns with your love. I swear this is true. These words came from deep within him and weren't lies. Yet, in a dark corner of his mind, pride continued growing. He felt special among all angels, unique and set apart. Am I not the one who shines most brightly in heaven? God postponed the revelation again, giving him more time to change. Even when the wind carries you away, remember your origin. All light comes from me. Never forget this truth, my son. What choice do you think Lucifer should have made at this moment? The temptation was like Adam and Eve's story in Eden's garden. God had given them everything in a place of perfect peace. But the tree of knowledge stood as a reminder of their freedom. The serpent whispered that they could be like God himself. This was the same mistake Lucifer was making in heaven. He wanted to be something more, to not depend on God completely. The morning star turned his back on the light that gave him life. Free will, God's most precious gift, became the most vulnerable point. Pride opened the door, and perfect peace shattered like glass. The virtues that held angels together became suddenly fragile. Heaven knew shadow for the very first time in its existence. Finally, the moment of revelation could no longer be delayed. God had to consider all celestial beings, not just Lucifer alone. Every angel felt the tension building in heaven's golden air. On that day, God gathered all his heavenly hosts together. The assembly illuminated the firmament with unprecedented brilliance. A solemn silence fell as every angel held their breath in anticipation. The firmament opened, and God's presence shone with infinite majesty. His voice filled the entire cosmos like soft, rolling thunder. I will create a material universe where life will flourish. This place will reflect my love and glory in a completely new way. Before the angels, he unveiled his vision of stars and galaxies. Planets would spin in perfect order through the vast darkness. On one special world called Earth, life would flourish beautifully. The angels watched, fascinated by these incredible new plans. Joy grew in their hearts as they beheld the Creator's vision. Everything was new, like a dream they never could have imagined. But then God continued with words that became even more mysterious. I will create beings in my image and likeness, called humans. They will be made of flesh and spirit, blending heaven and earth. The second person of the Trinity, my Son, will take human form. His name will be Jesus Christ, and you shall worship me through him. The silence in heaven became overwhelming at this shocking revelation. God was asking them to worship him in the humble form of humanity. He asked them to bend their knees to a human face, fragile and small. Many angels erupted in joy at this display of infinite love. They felt privileged to witness such a wonderful, sublime mystery. But among them, one of the brightest remained completely motionless. Lucifer didn't move, speak, or cheer with the other angels. He watched with distant eyes, as if light couldn't reach his heart. His gaze was like a dark well. His face showed an internal storm. Why should perfection itself need to lower itself this way? Why must beings of light worship something made of mere clay? God would create humans, knowing they would eventually corrupt themselves. Knowing this, he would still sacrifice himself for them through crucifixion. The vision of the cross was something terrible for Lucifer to see. These finite, ungrateful beings would rebel and even kill their Creator. Could anything be more absurd than this plan of redemption? From this burning question, bitterness coiled around his heart. Why wasn't he chosen for this special union with divinity? For centuries, he had been the most beautiful, closest to the throne. His light, his splendor, his wisdom made him worthy of more. But instead of elevating him, God decided to lower himself to flesh. Finally, the decisive moment arrived that would change everything. God stood surrounded by multitudes of angels in golden light. But Lucifer remained standing, his body rigid with silent hatred. Slowly, he opened his lips and spoke a single word. No, the word resonated like thunder through heaven's perfect silence. God looked at him with infinite sadness mixed with endless love. But Lucifer felt nothing except burning disdain in his heart. He took a deep breath and repeated with earth-shaking force, "No." His voice rose cold and defiant, like a king pronouncing judgment. The angels shuddered, unable to comprehend what they were. How could the purest angel defy the Creator himself this way? How dare he disobey the one who gave him everything? Lucifer turned to face the multitude of watching angels. With terrifying calm, he began to address them all directly. Can't you see that what God asks of us is completely absurd? He asks us to worship an inferior form and bend our knees. This isn't glory, but humiliation for beings made of pure light. It sowed doubt and disturbed the peace that once filled them. God asks the unacceptable of us, and we must refuse. It is God who has failed by taking this wrong path. Why should we bow to something so far beneath us? We who were made of light should occupy a much higher place. The angels listened, bewildered by his logical-sounding arguments. His words had a seductive reason that penetrated like gentle poison. In some angels, the seed of rebellion began to take root. Lucifer looked at them, one by one, with cold determination. His face reflected the certainty of his cause and his decision. Do you agree with Lucifer, or do you see the flaw in his thinking? Suddenly, a voice rose with force that shook the entire heavens. Who is like God? The voice belonged to Michael, a small archangel of lesser rank. But his purity shone with incomparable strength and conviction. In 3 simple words, Michael answered all of Lucifer's arguments. He pointed out the fundamental flaw in the rebellious logic. It was a cry of humility and absolute recognition of truth. No one could rival the Creator, not even the morning star. Michael's words awakened something deep within the listening angels. They remembered who they were and to whom they owed everything. Lucifer turned to Michael with icy fury and genuine surprise. No one had dared to challenge him so openly until now. Michael stepped forward, small but filled with unshakable courage. You are arrogant, and your light has become a consuming shadow. You're trying to eclipse the Creator with your own glory. Can't you see you've placed yourself above God Himself? Lucifer felt deep pain as Michael's words pierced his core. His pride and ambition had been exposed for all to see. Rage and shame flooded him like dark waves crashing together. You understand nothing about what we're being asked to do. Are you so blind you can't see this is pure humiliation? I, who was first in glory, cannot kneel before something inferior. His words sounded firm, but fury and bitterness distorted his voice. Michael looked at him, serene yet completely unyielding in stance. You don't understand love, Lucifer, and that's your tragedy. This isn't about humiliation, but about God's infinite love for creation. God becomes flesh for us, and you reject Him from pure pride. You've forgotten your place and that you're a reflection of His glory. It's not God who lowers Himself, but your pride that elevates you. Lucifer couldn't bear the weight of this truth any longer. Michael was showing him his own image, and it wasn't beautiful. It was a shadow full of resentment and wounded pride. Without another word, he turned and walked away from Michael. Inside him, an uncontainable anger burned hotter than ever. Alone, Lucifer wept tears of pure rage and growing hatred. How dare Michael challenge him, the brightest of all angels? Yet deep inside, a faint voice whispered that Michael was right. This truth tormented him more than anything else ever could. Can't you see that God asks the impossible of us all? He whispered to small groups with a voice full of conviction. We must kneel before an inferior form made of mere clay. Why should glorious beings worship a crucified God? We must bow before a broken body covered in blood and wounds. More and more angels began saying, Lucifer might be right. God cannot ask us to do something that defies all logic. Doubt crept in like morning fog through the golden halls. What if God isn't really God, but just a powerful angel? What if He's merely a greater version of Lucifer himself? The seed of doubt had been planted in many angelic minds. Lucifer knew exactly how to reach their hearts with his words. He spoke of dignity and the greatness of their existence. He promised them a heaven where they wouldn't bow to anyone, a place where their talents would be recognized without subordination. God gave us free will, so why not exercise it fully? Why not become who we truly are meant to be? With each gathering, His army of followers grew larger and stronger. These weren't lesser angels, but the most beautiful and wise. Those in whom God had invested great power joined the rebellion. Lucifer chose them carefully, seeking those who yearned for more. Heaven's most radiant beings began forming the first rebel army. They were creatures of such perfection that they outshone all others. Now that brilliant light was darkening with shadows of pride. We are the future of heaven and the universe itself. We are the light that refuses to kneel before inferior beings. If God won't give us our deserved place, we'll take it ourselves. His words burned with fervor that made every angel tremble. He spoke with certainty that made them question everything they knew. Under his leadership, the rebel army took its final shape. Each follower was like a fallen star transformed into a weapon. The angels who had been most loyal now rose as rebels. In their hearts burned ambition, pride, and false promises of freedom. The firmament, once full of harmony, trembled with echoes of war. How do you think the loyal angels felt watching their brothers rebel? In a corner of heaven, Michael rose, steadfast and determined. The small archangel raised his sword high above his head. Who is like God? His cry awakened those who still doubted which side to choose. Michael stood before Lucifer's army with unmatched humility and strength. He knew his forces were smaller than the rebel host, but he never wavered because his faith was his shield. His loyalty to God was his most powerful. The war between light and shadow reached its ultimate climax. Lucifer, the morning star, had transformed his light into rebellion. This would forever mark the history of all creation. The first battle was fought between brothers who once loved each other. With each blow, the heavens shattered like breaking crystal. The universe held its breath as the conflict raged on. The battle erupted with fury that shook heaven's foundations. On one side stood the rebel army led by proud Lucifer. His splendor was now cloaked in shadows of his own making. Facing him were the faithful angels led by humble Michael. Heaven became a battlefield of light clashing against twisted darkness. The armies met like waves of fire and thunder colliding. Each crossing of light swords created flashes like shooting stars. The fallen angels fought with seemingly inexhaustible fury and rage, but the faithful angels battled with quiet, steady determination. They were guided by love and loyalty to their Creator. Michael advanced at the front, shouting with fervor that echoed everywhere. Who is like God? His strength came not from rank, but from his unshakable faith. He fought not for glory, but because he knew truth was with him. In that certainty, his strength seemed to multiply beyond measure. The faithful angels felt divine power protecting and strengthening them. The Creator was with them, and that presence gave them courage. Lucifer, enraged, tried desperately to push Michael back. He rose on dark wings, exhaling shadows that enveloped all who looked. I was the first. I am the true light of heaven. But his words were empty, hollow echoes of former glory. The light within him had become a distorted, ugly shadow. His power, though still formidable, couldn't eclipse the truth. Michael held that truth like a pure, unquenchable flame. The battle was fierce, and heaven itself seemed deeply wounded. Angels who weren't fighting watched with awe and deep sorrow. They felt the weight of rebellion breaking their hearts. The perfect peace had shattered, and order teetered on collapse. Yet, amid destruction, hope stood firm and unbreakable. The faith of loyal angels shone in every blow they struck. Their love for God illuminated every step toward the rebels. At last, the force of good began to prevail over evil. Michael's sword rose high as he spoke the final words. By God's power, fall, Lucifer. In that moment, darkness split apart like torn. The rebellion that had been so fierce began to crumble. The fallen angels, a third of heaven's hosts, were cast out. They were dragged down like stars, plummeting from the sky. Lucifer became Satan, and all his followers fell with him. They were hurled into an abyss of darkness and desolation. Heaven fell into solemn silence, bearing the sadness of loss. The war had left deep scars in paradise itself. The faithful angels felt the battle's weight on their souls, but they knew that light had triumphed over darkness. Faith and hope had proven they cannot be defeated. In this victory, heaven remembered an eternal, unchangeable truth. Good always triumphs over evil, not by force, but by love. Goodness is the very essence of God Himself. It's a light that no darkness can ever fully extinguish. Pride, hatred, and ambition may fight fiercely for a time, but they are fleeting shadows against the purity of divine love. The battle had ended, and heaven, though wounded, remained at peace. Michael's words now echoed in every corner of the universe. Who is like God? It was an immovable truth, a reminder of God's infinite glory. Nothing and no one, not even the brightest light, could surpass Him. After the battle, heaven opened to cast out all the rebels. Lucifer and his followers were hurled far from the light. Heaven itself seemed to tremble during this terrible expulsion. The angels who had been most beautiful and powerful fell. They fell like banished meteors cast into the lower world. It was a place of chaos and shadow beyond peace's reach, a kind of eternal exile where God's glory couldn't be felt. Lucifer, now Satan, felt the weight of separation like burning iron. Being cut off from God was deeper than any physical punishment. The underworld wasn't yet final hell, but complete spiritual isolation. It was like a shattered dream, a dark reflection of heaven. A realm utterly cut off from all holiness and light. For Satan, this meant the end of his original divine purpose. Yet, in his pride and rage, hatred morphed into a new mission. If he couldn't have God's glory, he would destroy it everywhere. His gaze turned toward the material world God promised to create. The idea of corrupting humans gave him bitter satisfaction. Humans had stolen his place at God's throne in heaven. That love and goodness would become targets of his hatred. If he couldn't be in God's presence, neither should humans. This resentment transformed into a deep desire to sabotage creation. He would corrupt the purity of everything God loved. Why do you think Satan chose to target humanity specifically? From that moment, evil began to exist as an active force, not just as absence of good, but as organized destruction. The demons, led by Satan, sought ways to influence the material world. They would corrupt humans and incite pride, envy, and despair. The very feelings that had led to their own downfall. God allowed this separation as an act of divine justice. The expulsion wasn't just punishment, but necessary balance. Those who rejected light couldn't continue basking in its warmth. God's love was always there, but justice demanded separation. The angels who chose rebellion had rejected holiness itself. They could no longer dwell in God's holy presence. In this act, the balance between love and justice was perfect. Justice required separation, while love granted them continued existence. They could exist, but in darkness of their own choosing. The story of Satan doesn't end with his expulsion from heaven. It extends into the relationship between good and evil today. His fall and hatred remain present in every temptation we face. Evil seeks to infiltrate human hearts through our freedom. It targets our desire for greatness with false promises. But this influence is limited by God's greater power. Good, which comes from God, always has the final say. The battle that began in heaven continues on earth now. Satan and demons seek to darken the light in every soul. But God's grace, love, and justice are always present too. They remind us that although evil may be loud and defiant, good will always triumph in the end through divine love. Lucifer's fall became the beginning of an eternal conflict. It reminds us that goodness and light are truly invincible. As in heaven, on earth too. Michael's question still resonates. Who is like God? Since his expulsion, Satan has pursued a single destructive purpose. He seeks to corrupt the creation he once inhabited with glory. The Bible recounts various episodes where Satan appears as tempter. He challenges not just mortals, but key figures of faith. The most symbolic moment occurs when Satan tempts Jesus himself. After 40 days of fasting in the desert, Jesus faces him. Satan says, "If you're God's son, turn these stones into bread." Then he takes Jesus to the temple's highest point. "Throw yourself down so angels will protect you and show power." Finally, he offers Jesus all the world's kingdoms for worship. This reveals his ultimate intention to steal God's glory. Jesus responds to each temptation with scripture and complete trust. He firmly rejects each proposal, reaffirming that power belongs to God. This shows how faith and humility can withstand any temptation. True power lies not in miracles, but in obedience to God. Another tale is Job's testing in the Old Testament writings. Satan appears before God with arrogance and defiance combined. Does Job fear God for nothing or just for blessings? He challenges not just Job, but the very nature of faith. Satan implies that love is superficial, bought with good things. His challenge affronts the nature of genuine love and faith. He suggests no one can remain faithful amid real suffering. Job's story reveals Satan's desire to destroy faith at its core. He inflicts terrible pain and despair on this righteous man. Yet Job's response, though filled with anguish, teaches us strength. Faith isn't just response to blessings, but deep-rooted loyalty. It persists even when facing the most extreme suffering. Satan fails, and Job's faith becomes an eternal testament. His first major act was in Eden's perfect garden. God had set the stage for human history with infinite love. In that garden, Lucifer saw his chance to strike back. He would strip innocence from Adam and Eve forever. Taking the form of a serpent, he approached Eve carefully. "Did God really say you can't eat from any tree here?" He began with a question to plant seeds of suspicion. His technique wasn't force, but whispers that invaded Eve's heart. "You will be like God, knowing good and evil completely." This promise sealed humanity's fate in that fateful moment. Adam and Eve, tempted by the possibility of divinity, fell. With them, the entire world fell into sin's dark shadow. Lucifer achieved what he planned from the abyss below. He separated creation from its creator with one temptation. That first choice in Eden echoes in every temptation today. Evil acts as an echo of that primordial rebellion. It's a voice trying to separate us from goodness itself. But every story of resistance reminds us good wins. Faith and love answer hatred and despair with hope. What lessons do you see in these stories of temptation and faith? In Revelation, the Bible's final book, Satan's fate is unveiled. This tale portrays Satan as humanity's and God's ultimate enemy. John describes visions of the last days with striking imagery. It's an era when evil reaches its absolute peak. The battle between light and darkness intensifies beyond measure. Revelation presents Satan as the great dragon of ancient times, the same serpent who brought sin to Eden long ago. He has wielded destructive power since his fall from heaven. This dragon symbolizes not just evil, but deceptive destruction. Revelation describes a time of tribulation and terrible trials. Humanity divides between those following God and those succumbing to evil. Satan appears as the great deceiver of all nations. From the beginning, he has sought to separate humanity from God. In the last days, he intensifies efforts using every means. He is the accuser, constantly trying to lead faithful ones astray. He sows doubt, temptation, and despair wherever he can. John's vision shows Satan facing Michael and heaven's armies again. This epic battle continues the war that began in paradise. Now, at time's culmination, the conflict reaches its fiercest point. Satan is also the mastermind behind the beast and false prophet. Through them, he seeks to establish a counterfeit kingdom. This realm directly challenges God's authority on earth. It's a twisted imitation of the divine kingdom itself. Satan's attempt to be worshipped as God reaches its peak. His ultimate ambition is revealed in this final deception. He wants the glory he's always craved through lies and tyranny. Revelation concludes with good's final triumph over all evil. After great tribulation and the last battle, Satan is defeated. Evil's power is completely dismantled forever and ever. Satan is captured and thrown into the lake of burning sulfur. This place of eternal punishment renders him utterly powerless. He can never again reach humanity or influence creation. This act of ultimate justice seals Satan's inevitable fate. It seals the fate of all his followers as well. They face eternity completely separated from God's presence. Satan's fall is the ultimate expression of good conquering evil, allows evil to act only to a certain point. He gives humanity freedom to choose their own path. But at the end of time, when all has been tested, when all decisions have been made with full knowledge, evil is finally and completely vanquished by divine power. This isn't just consequence of Satan's actions alone. It reaffirms God's absolute power over all creation. In his ultimate downfall, Satan becomes a symbol. He represents a failed rebellion that could never succeed, a dimmed light that in ambition and hatred fell short. It could never overcome the love that gives life to everything. Satan's defeat holds profound meaning for humanity's destiny. This prophecy reminds us that evil's time is limited. Its power pales compared to God's eternal nature. Good triumphs not just through strength, but through essence. It embodies truth, justice, and love at its very core. This final battle symbolizes the divine promise of restoration. It promises redemption for those choosing light over darkness. Today, Revelation serves as a powerful reminder of hope, while Satan continues attempting to lead humanity astray. His fate is already sealed by God's eternal justice. His power is limited, and his rebellion will ultimately fail. The story of his fall and defeat reinforces our hope. Faith, hope, and perseverance are our spiritual weapons. They draw us closer to God and His eternal light. They remind us the final victory belongs to good alone. God's light will shine forever through all eternity. If Lucifer's story has intrigued you, there's more to discover. 5 prophecies in Revelation reveal Satan's complete final fate. They show his role in events ending the conflict forever. These prophecies explain Satan's last act to corrupt the world. You'll see how his rebellion affected not just his destiny. It's deeply connected with humanity's future and divine justice. The ultimate triumph of justice awaits your discovery. Get ready to uncover the conclusion of this ancient tale. It began with a fall and ends in ultimate revelation. Don't miss this final chapter of the greatest story ever told.